Thank you, as always, for listening to Caleb vs. Self. On this episode, I've got one of my OGs, one of the homies, Greg Betters. We talk about Godzilla movies, aliens, his time as a special effects artist, and we talk about a whole bunch of other stuff. No specific promo, no nothing, but if you do listen to this and you want to check something out, check out any of the Godzilla movies. They're obviously pretty awesome. There's tons of stuff there to learn about, and they're just overall entertaining. So hopefully you enjoy this episode with Greg and I, and we'll see you next time. All right, round two, Greg.
Try it again.
Well, some people who are going to listen to this have no idea that we talked over at your place for like, I don't know, 3 hours. I thought I recorded 2 of them. Turns out I screwed it up. It all froze, so we're going to try and do this again. But with me is Greg Betters. I've known Greg for a few years now just through work, but one of the things, of course, that draws me to you is all of the crazy-ass toys, specifically the aliens and the Godzillas that are on your desk. You've done some work back in the day in LA on a couple of movies. You're really passionate about not just the toys, not just all of the old effects stuff, but even your bands, which we won't even get into because you're just a litany of all these incredible things, in my opinion.
No, stop, no.
But let's start with Godzilla's because, of course, as I did the first time, the first thing I'm going to ask you is what was it about the 98, 99 Godzilla movie that all, or I shouldn't say all, but most of Godzilla fans just hated?
I think the thing that really sets that one apart, that why people hated it, was, first of all, it was the first American Godzilla movie. They had tried to do it before, back in the 80s. One of the producers from Friday the 13th tried to do it, tried to make a 3D one. That fell apart. Then in 94, the guy that directed Speed was supposed to do it. Stan Winston created some suits for it. They looked amazing. You can see them online. Looks like Godzilla. That fell through, and then it went to the guys that made Independence Day. And they didn't even want to do Godzilla. They were offered it. They didn't want to do it. They went to Toho. Toho said, look, here's specifics about Godzilla that you have to do. He doesn't eat people. He's got to be, he's got to have the dorsal plates. He can't really show emotion, blah, blah, blah. Well, they came back and said, I can't remember the guy's name. What's his name? Roland Emmerich came back and said, all right, well, here's Godzilla. They showed him a picture of Godzilla. It didn't, I think he was really trying to just get out of it. And they showed him a picture of Godzilla. It looks nothing like Godzilla, like the classic Godzilla, which, okay, they're going for a different type. So knowing that, Toho agreed. Now, if you know anything about Toho, they are the creators of Godzilla. They're the studio behind it ever since 54. They are very strict about Godzilla. I mean, about everything, about their merchandise and everything. And the fact that they just said, okay, so you made the movie. And it's basically it was right off the heels of Independence Day. The movie didn't capture Godzilla as being what he is, a god. I mean, he's supposed to be this malevolent, just force of nature. And he's not. He's just an animal. And he's just basically a large T-Rex that's radiated, that, by the way, doesn't spew fire. He has like some burp that he does or something stupid that, catches things on fire. And beyond that, the movie is, to me, it's stupid. I mean, and look, some Godzilla movies are really stupid, but it doesn't capture the essence of Godzilla, the awe of him. And he got taken out at the end by missiles. Yeah. I mean, that's really it. Now, as years have gone by, I like it as a monster movie. It's a cool 90s cheesy monster movie. But to me, it's not a Godzilla movie. Do I like the design? Kind of. It's, it's cool, and I can see, where they were going with it, but Godzilla has this lore about him. That's why we're so attracted that he is indestructible. I mean, I think that's what attracted me to him as such a little kid. He is basically your temper tantrum that if you can't have as a kid. You're sent into your room. What do? Oh, you just feel like smashing stuff. That's what he is. You
Right.
can't stop him. It's almost like the Superman effect of, you can't tell me what to do because I'm Superman. Well, Godzilla kind of invokes that is I'm just going to destroy the city and there's nothing you can do. You can send your tanks, your guns, everything you hit. There's nothing that can stop me. And it usually takes something incredible to stop him, or you don't. And he's just, the world has to deal with him and live with him. So I think that's why the 98 one, because it was our first shot here in America, in the United States to try it, and we failed.
So
And
I
that's
was
why
watching a video about Toho and about why they would even agree to do that, and it seemed like, or at least I was led to believe in this video and with some of the readings, is that they just wanted their foot in the door to the American market, and that's why they were willing to be like, okay, you want to do Godzilla that way?
yeah.
All right, let's bite the bullet so we can get into that American market. And one of the things that we talked about when I talked to you last was how genuinely like dark the origins of Godzilla really are and why the American market was not really exposed to it back then.
Right. And it was known to be these goofy monster movies because, and that's, the one thing that we talked about before was usually, Godzilla really came to America. It really hit big actually in the 70s, believe it or not. Godzilla King of the Monsters, the 1954 one, that King of the Monsters is actually the American version where they put in Raymond Burr. That was a semi-hit, but not really. People knew about it, but it wasn't until the 70s when it really hit television. And it was the Godzilla versus Megalon, where that's where a lot of people that grew up with Godzilla, in the Saturday morning, it was the goofy 70s ones. Now, when I say goofy, some of them aren't goofy. By nowadays they are. Some of them are really dark, but they played like, those ones in him versus the Smog Monster or Hedorah. They're goofy. Um, so when this hit, when the 98 one hit, people were like, oh, it's just a stupid Godzilla movie. And if you really research Godzilla going back, that 54, the original Gojira, is horrifying. There's parts in that movie that still make me tear up. Seriously, they make me tear up. Like, there's a scene in there where a mother is hovered over her children. It's that classic shot, and the buildings are, collapsing around her, and she actually says, we're going to go see Daddy now. It's just horrible. And then there's another shot where they show the mom dead and the kids are screaming over her. It's basically an allegory to Hiroshima and the nuclear bomb. That's what they wanted to make. They wanted Toho originally wanted to make like a movie about that, and no, you can't make that. So they said, all right, well, we're gonna make it. We're gonna make it, but we're just gonna put in a monster, a radiated monster that has kilo scars on him that looks like he's been burned.
Right.
That's basically what it is. So I think going back to 98, it was kind of disrespectful that was, and I say, talking about Godzilla, disrespectful, but on the lore, I think that's what us fans felt like. This is kind of disrespectful to the lore. And that's why I think the 2014 one, even though he wasn't made by a nuclear bomb, he still was he was more of the protector, and he was a god.
Right.
You don't know how old he is. He's millions of years old. He's this ancient god. And they went more for the Godzilla towards the Heisei and towards the late 70s, where he's a protector of the Earth. And that means getting rid of nuclear shit. So that's why I think a lot of people liked the newer ones, the legendary ones, which started in 2014. And he looked badass. He looked amazing. I know now in this, in the Godzilla community, I know a lot of people, some of my good friends, hate the design of the new one.
Really?
I know, I don't get it. They say that he has a small head, which, okay, he does, but I don't know. I don't know how much closer you could get to. First of all, he looks so badass I mean, he just, it's Godzilla, that silhouette. Gareth Edwards, when the director of that film, when he was helping with the designers and everything, I want it to look like, I know viewers can't see this, but I have an X Plus Godzilla here. There's the silhouette of the classic Godzilla. You look at that and you say, that's Godzilla, and they treated him like a god, and that's what he's kind of supposed to be. It's very H.P. Lovecraft. I don't think a lot of people realize, that's what I see in the 2014 one, especially. He's this old god that arises from the sea, kind of like Cthulhu, except he's a protector, kind of, where Cthulhu just wants to destroy. So that's where I think a lot of people really enjoyed the newest one. I know I did. I like them all. I like all the new ones. But as far as, again, getting back to 98, I think that's the biggest reason, is that it just wasn't Godzilla. One of the suit actors, I can't remember his name. It wasn't obviously Nakajima, the original guy that played him for like 20 years, but one of the suit actors that played him during the Heisei series, when he was at the premiere in New York, I believe, got up halfway through the movie, 98, and walked out and said, there is no soul to this movie that is not Godzilla.
Right.
I mean,
and that's where the Geno moniker comes from?
Yes, Godzilla only in name.
Yep.
Yeah, Godzilla in name only. Sorry, yes. Geno, Zilla, and they even, in Godzilla Final Wars, which is a Japanese, that's one of the last Toho ones of the Millennium series, which is in the 2000s, which, in my opinion, is not a good Godzilla movie. I mean, because, look, I'm not saying every Godzilla movie is good either. There are some stinkers. I mean, there's like 30 of them. I like parts of all of them, but I think that one, especially Final Wars, which was supposed to be, that was the 40th anniversary, I believe. Yeah, I think it was. Yeah, it was the 40th anniversary of Godzilla. They were supposed to go out with a bang, not make Godzilla movies for a while, and it basically was just a fan flick for me. That's all it was, and it was stupid. It didn't make any really sense. A lot of us don't like the movie, but we liked how Godzilla looked. But they had Zilla in it, and basically saying that basically the Americans thought that was Godzilla and it wasn't. And Godzilla, the true Godzilla, kicks his ass in Australia. The fight is like, I think the fight is a total of 4 seconds.
Yeah. Just straight up kicks Zilla's ass.
And just blows him up. So that's why. I mean.
So let me ask you this then, like, as you keep going, because one of the things that in all of the reading and in different videos I've watched, I've noticed is that there's so many subtle differences between different Godzillas, whether, he's got like 4 fingers or 5 or the placement of the dorsals and how big they are, how small they are. When you go to that level of detail, is that another reason why a lot of people like to collect as well? Because there's so many different small subtle things that have been changed from each Godzilla's?
There's so many small things, but there's also so many, things that are so drastically different. Like the 2 that I have right here on this.
Yep.
I mean, you couldn't get any different. I mean, sure, they're upright, they have dorsal fins, but if you look at these, this is going more to the classic 54, but taking it to a horror extreme. Like, you feel sorry for this thing. This thing is just an abomination. It's just, it's soulless. It's just a walking monolith with eyes, and it's just scabbed and disgusting, and just, it looks like it's turned inside out. It's very Cronenberg. It's almost like it went through the device that Brundlefly made, and then it got like turned inside out. That's what it reminds me of. Like, it's like you could see bones sticking out of it. It's just disturbing. And then you got the classic Heisei, which is Godzilla. It's this silhouette of Godzilla. But in the Heisei series in the 90s and in 84, it's pretty much, they're different. Us Godzilla dorks know, like, the difference is, well, this one's a little chubbier and this one has, the dorsal plates are a little bit more classic. But if you were to just show the different ones, they're pretty much the same. It's when you go back into the 60s where they really change. Some of them are hysterically funny, which I love. I mean, Godzilla versus King Kong, he looks like Kermit the Frog, and which I love. He looks so goofy. Um, 64, he's kind of got these jowly cheeks. He looks awesome still. He looks really scary, but he's got these like almost bulldoggy cheeks. And then you get
What
into the late 60s where it went really goofball, where he almost looks like Cookie Monster. And then in the 70s, they basically just turned him into a hero, like a rock'em sock'em kind of boxing hero. Um,
what's
yeah,
the
and
one that you showed me when I was there, where you have just like the head and the eyeballs look like? I mean,
that's
I don't,
six, that's
I don't mean to be,
64.
I don't mean to
That's
be
64.
rude,
Yeah, he's
but
very,
that looks
he's Muppety. No, he is. That's the charm of it, of these guys in a suit. And what's funny is if you watch these, they recycle a lot of them, but they'll change the head. And once you get into the 60s and 70s, it's when they kind of were running out of money and they were just using stock footage and they were using old footage from old movies. And the suits are falling apart. I believe it's in Godzilla versus not Megalon, Gigan. The suit's falling apart. Like it's straight up falling apart. You can almost see the guy through the suit, and they don't fix it. I mean, but that's part of the charm, though. It's just especially with Blu-ray now, you can see everything. I mean, back when we used to watch it on cable on little CRT TVs, you're watching them, you couldn't really see all that shit. Now it's like you can see like when the helicopter's going by, you can see the strings and everything, but it's kind of part of the charm. And what they did to that suit actor, rest his soul, I mean, rest in peace, Nakajima. I mean, they'd light the guy on fire. They'd throw like legit like M80s at him, put him in water, he almost drowned. They would just torture this poor guy's head caught on fire. And I guess that's part of the art of it too, of all of these suits, why we collect all of these too, of the pain that guy went through. Literally, I mean, he was passing out in 54, because you got to remember, in 1954 when they made that first movie, they didn't know what the hell they were doing. They originally wanted to do stop motion like Kong. I mean, King Kong was a huge inspiration. They wanted to make a monster movie. Well, they didn't have the money of RKO. They didn't have that kind of money to do stop motion. So they
put a guy in a suit.
Put a dude in a suit, and they had some puppets too, like for close-up shots, which if you watch it now, it's like, yeah, it's so a puppet. But the movie still works. If I try to watch it, I know this sounds really campy, but I watch it on the anniversary of the death of Nakajima, the suit actor, which I never got to meet. A lot of my friends got to meet him, not only meet him, but become like personal friends with him. He would come over to G-Fest every year with his daughter. My buddy Rich, Christine, David Dobko has interviewed him, and he just seemed like such a wonderful man and just so grateful that he was a part of this, and very humble. Like he would come over to America and be like, "Why are you so like?" I was just a suit actor for for Godzilla. It's like, you don't know the inspiration. Like that was our childhood. But anyways, every year I watch it on his anniversary. Now it sounds kind of goofy, but I watch it and it still gets me every time. It's still like that. After I'm done with it, it's just this haunting dread. And that's what it's supposed to do. It's not a comedy. It's not funny at all. There's no satire or anything. It is just a straight up bleak story, and it's basically just a warning to mankind. Don't go messing with things that you're not fully aware of yet, or it's basically just saying stay away from nuclear war. Obviously, I mean, that's just it's a warning basically, and I don't think we've learned anything. But anyways,
that's a topic for another day.
Yeah,
for
it's
sure.
a topic for another thing. But yeah, I mean, so Godzilla has a huge, on me anyways, huge impact on me. Ever since I was a little kid. So it's not just some campy thing, which I love all that stuff, but it's also just the lore. I mean, my dad remembers Godzilla, obviously. My dad was, God, 12, 13 when it came out. He remembers seeing it. So it's a generational thing too.
Sure.
Now there's new kids that are coming out, and the first thing they're exposed to are these new films.
Yeah.
And what's exciting is you think when they would go back and watch the old ones, they'd be like, oh, these suck. These are stupid. Look at this guy in a suit. They actually love them. They love them. It's almost like it's just something that you don't, because you know why I think they love them? Because you don't see it anymore.
Right.
You just don't see kaiju movies like that with men in suits or women in suits. You just don't see it.
Yeah.
It's kind of a lost art, you know. So I'm kind of hoping it comes back a little bit, kind of merge the two.
Yeah. I mean, that's an interesting. I mean, because the same thing's happening with CGI today, right? There's people
CG,
making
yeah,
the argument like, oh, CGI could pretty much just take over a movie. But, and we had this conversation last time. I'm probably going to
yeah,
say this a whole bunch, but there is something specific about a person acting that feels way more natural. Now, I know there's different ways to do CGI, like what was it, Schmeagol in the Lord
yeah.
of the Rings and whatnot. But it's still, what's his name, Andy? Oh, jeez, I'm gonna
Andy
forget.
Serkis.
He's still doing the motions. The computer's still tracking his movements.
Yeah, and in the Planet of the Apes movies too. And
Yes.
we know it's CGI, but there's so much emotion there. And for Godzilla 2014 and Godzilla King of the Monsters, which was in 2019, oh, and I can't remember his name, but there was a guy that played him that did the same
He
thing that
played
Andy Serkis
Godzilla.
did. Yeah, he played Godzilla, so you can actually see his face in there. There's emotion behind there. Like when you zoom in on his face when he's given that kind of look to you, there's some emotion there. What I would love to see for Toho, because now that Godzilla and Kong, that was a big hit. Who knows if they're going to make any more? The rights do go back to Toho. They're supposed to be making new movies. I would love to see new Japanese Godzilla movies. Shin Godzilla, that was done in 2016, was the first Godzilla movie that Toho made that was strictly CGI. They had some things that were animatronic, but I don't even think they used them, and it looked amazing. And I have to say, for the budget constraints that they had, it did look amazing, and it did look like a guy in a suit. So that's why I'm almost thinking, why not do a guy in a suit and then just chroma key him in, or green screen him in, or do something where there are sets, and then just um, put CGI elements in there. Like if you don't want his eye, if you want his eyes to blink a certain way, do that. But like I think we were talking before, there's that uncanny valley, is what it's called, where your eye looks at something and knows that is not real. The best example of that for me was when I saw Rogue One and they had Tarkin. They had a CGI Tarkin.
Yep.
It just didn't look right. It looked good. And now, granted, props to the animators and everything, because I know they spent a lot of time on that. Those artists are incredible. But when it comes down to it, I know they're on a deadline. I know that they're on time constraints, but and the same thing with Leia at the end. You just looked at it and you're like, oh, it's cool, but something's not right there. Eyes look a
Yeah.
little weird. It's all in the eyes, and there's just something artificial about it. Versus if you were to have, even with a creature or a monster, when you have a creature or a monster in camera, something that light is bouncing off of it and it's not artificial, somebody lit that on that set, there's something that says, wow, that's really cool. That's why I think Del Toro, director, that did like the Hellboy movies and did Pan's Labyrinth.
Yeah.
Look at those creatures, and he did, and that's the best. That's a great example of the Thin Man, that Doug Jones played. They basically just CGI'd his legs. His legs were there, but they made his legs thinner. And if you look at the behind the scenes, it looks kind of goofy. Like his legs are green in some spots, but in others, it was just to make him look thin. But they had him in makeup and everything. That's how you do CGI. And to me, that's even creepier. That's where CGI can really, to the eye, look amazing. Like you're looking at something, it's lit right. Your eye, you don't even have to be an artist. You could just be, your regular Joe going to the movie theater, and you're like, that is freaking creepy. The fawn that was in that, which was also played by Doug Jones. It
Doug
was
Jones has done
him.
a lot of that type
Yeah.
of work,
In
right?
Hellboy, he did that. Yeah, he had the, what are they called? I can't remember the main creatures in the first Hellboy. There was a guy in a suit running around, but then all the tentacles on his head were CGI. So it was
Right.
cool. And some of the tentacles were actually there. So your eye's not going to really look and see, okay, what's that right there? Your eye's just going to be drawn to the center of that object and be like, that is a real thing. All the other stuff is just there. You know, I think of going back to American Werewolf in London, why that still works. A lot of hard work went into that. And again, they had to come up with that. Rick Baker, there was no guide or program that you'd go to or pixels to make a guy turn into a werewolf on screen, not only on screen, but in a well lit room using foam latex, which light notoriously bounces off of, that makes it look like rubber. I mean, it's you have to basically, the 80s effects guys had to become kind of like magicians, and you had to become inventors, because
Yeah.
there's no book, there's no way, you don't go to a shop and buy, I want a werewolf kick, you have to make this shit. And these guys were young. I mean, we're talking like barely out of their teens, like Rob Bottin doing The Howling at 20. You go watch that movie and watch that transformation scene. It's amazing. It looks better than CGI. I'm sorry, it does. And those werewolves are amazing. It comes down to ingenuity. That's what it is. And it's
What's
kind
one
of
of the
lost now.
things? Yeah, that was one of the things that we were talking about before, and we've actually talked about a long time ago as well. Is with your time that you got to spend out in LA doing effect stuff, the one thing that you had said is you've got to be able to think on the fly. You were
Yeah.
telling me, I think at one point you had done some weird thing for like blood because you had to, because all the blood got spilled or something like that. What was that one?
No, that was
It was a
actually
was
that
it
was here.
slashing?
That was a film that was shot here. I worked with
Oh, that's
Mike Del
right.
Rosa, and who is another effects guy from Rochester. And I was helping him on this, and it actually was starring the guy who played Big Pussy in Sopranos. So he was in it. I can't remember his name, but he was in it, and we had to shoot him. We were down at Mount Hope Cemetery. No, I think we were at Mount Hope Cemetery or Riverside, one of the cemeteries, not Mount Hope. And he gets shot in the cemetery. So originally, all they wanted us to do was to spray blood on a tombstone. And it was actually the director's mother or something tombstone. So because he didn't want to offend
Oh,
anybody, so he's like, oh, my mom would love this. My mom would love this. So it's like, okay, I remember that. So originally, it was just supposed to be that. It was supposed to be just like they shoot it, and then we're going to spray blood. Well, at the last second, they were like, well, how about we shoot him in the head? And we're like, well, we don't have anything for that. You don't just shoot somebody in the head and then they wanted him to fall down and see an open wound. Well, we didn't have anything. So for catering, what they had was pizza. So, maybe Mike would get mad telling this. It's like a secret, and it looks great on the film. I think it's called The Rochester Method. I believe it is. It might be online. I don't know. But I think that's the name of the movie, The Rochester Method. And so we just, I believe, and I apologize, it was like 20 years ago. I think what we did was we snaked tubing, like fish tubing, up his clothes, and then up into his head. And then I believe I just blew on it, like blew blood through it. So the spurt went out the top of his head. We're talking, real high tech here.
right.
And then that's all we did. And we shot it from the front so you don't see it. So it worked. And then when he fell down, the wound, we took pizza and stuck it in his hair. And I remember, him being Italian. I remember him saying something like, "Oh, you're ruining good pizza, putting it in my hair. What's the matter with you?" I remember he was so nice. He was so cool. I mean, he let us put pizza in his hair, for God's sakes. And we just kind of moved it around. We took cheese, and it looked like part of brain matter and everything, and tomato, and mushed it up. And you know what? It looked. I'm sorry. somebody gets shot, it doesn't look pretty, especially in hair.
Right.
So it's not like we needed like a prosthetic on his face or anything like that. It was on the top of his head. And it looks, I'm sorry, I remember seeing it. It looks great. And it's pizza. It's fucking pizza. So, I mean, that's some of the simplest stuff that we've done where you just look around and that's literally us just looking around going, what could we use? And
Yeah.
there it was, pizza.
Well, so far of all the stories you've ever told me, my favorite is you driving back towards LA
Oh, yeah.
with a truck full of body parts.
Yeah, yeah.
What?
So
That was
that story,
was that Children of the Corn movie or was that
yes.
Vampires?
Children of the Corn Part
5,
I believe it is. Yeah, so okay. So the the story goes, wait 1 second.
Sure.
Because I have one of the props. Remember we were talking
That's
about
right.
this?
Yes.
Give me not even 30 seconds, man. Hold on. Here's Godzilla for you. Let me go grab it. I should have grabbed this before. Hold on.
None of this is getting cut out, by the way. This is legitimate. This is what happens sometimes in interviews, and it's sometimes the best part of them. Just knowing that someone's going to hear this part and be like, what the fuck? I know Dennis is going to. If he ever hears this part, he's going to be like, dude, you should have cut this one.
That's my dog, everybody. Sorry.
Otto.
Okay, so here we go. Stop it. Okay, so this, I'm showing you, Caleb. This is it right here. So this is from Kane Hodder, the guy who played Jason. Jason Voorhees.
I don't remember seeing this. I remember seeing the vampire prop.
I didn't even bring it down. I don't know why, but this is it. So this is basically called a fart bag, I believe it's called. And this is so juvenile, but all you do is you squeeze it and you can make it. I know this is really highbrow stuff here, okay? But if you put it in your pocket, you can literally put it in your pocket and just, sit there and talk to somebody and just go, it sounds really good. It sounds like a fart. I mean, so anyway, so the reason why I'm bringing that up is, so I arrive on set. We're out in, I believe it was Barstow or somewhere in the, and I could be wrong. It was, again, this was 25, almost 30 years ago. We were out in the desert and there apparently was a cornfield out there that we could use or something. So it's Children of the Corn, basically out in the middle of nowhere. And I drove the effects truck out there. My buddy Mike, who was working with me, got dropped off later. But anyways, so Kane Hodder, not only did he play Jason for a number of movies, I mean, he's known as Jason Voorhees. The guy's a legend. He's great stuntman. He's a stunt coordinator. So I had no idea he was going to be the stunt coordinator. So I usually don't like fanboy out. I try not to, especially when you're working on a film or anything. But I kind of fanboyed out when I saw him. I knew exactly who he was. I come walking down the hill and there he is. He's the stunt coordinator for this. So I'm like, hi, my name's Greg. I'm the effects guy here. I'm going to be doing like the body parts and stuff. And the first thing he says is, he goes, hi, it's nice to meet you. That's what happens. And he's got it hidden, so I don't know what's happening. So Jason just farted on me. Literally, Jason Voorhees fart the first time. So I'm trying to act professional, and he looks dead. I have a poker face at me. He goes, "I'm sorry, I have a gas problem," and I'm like, "Okay, cool." So I'm trying not to, and he keeps on doing it. Like he keeps on crouching down with me. So we're gonna go over here, and he keeps on farting and farting and farting and farting. I lose it. I just go, I'm sorry. So finally he shows me and I'm like, oh my God. So I got pranked by Jason. So this is awesome. So Mike comes to the set, my buddy Mike, who's also was working on me on this film. And I tried not to laugh for the longest time with him, trying to be polite. He did that to Mike once and Mike just lost it. Almost fell on the floor laughing. Just started like red-faced laughing. So he showed him it too. So anyways, we start working on this movie. We start working on the effects. We're like throwing body parts around. We've got literally like 4 or 5 bodies. They're all chopped up. and they're silicone, so they look pretty real. David Carradine was in that. So it was a great set day. It was an awesome day. But it's like we wrapped at like midnight or 1 o'clock in the morning, I believe. So it's obviously dark. We're tired. We're covered in blood. Literally just, I have blood all over my face because we were squirting blood on people. I can't even remember the deaths. Like, they were just ridiculous. So we're throwing these body parts in the back of the effects truck. The effects truck has a cab on it too, which you could see in, but it had a cab on it. Throwing all this in, we got garbage bags lined up, and we had these big, like, barrels of blood. Barrels of blood. We load them up. We're just tired. We want to go home. So we're driving, and there's nothing. And, you know, this was a time, unfortunately, we smoked, and like we saw a gas station come up. So we're like, you know, let's just stretch our legs because it's a little ways till we get back home. And I need to get some cigarettes. We'll get some cigarettes. And Mike goes, I'll get them. So we pull into this gas station. Mind you, I'm covered in blood. Like, I have blood splattered all over me. Mike has blood splattered all over him. It's, you know, and for us, it's like miners working in a coal mine. You come home with coal all over you. You know, it's just part of the job.
Right.
So, and we pull in, and there's a cop car there with 2 officers in there. I go right by we drive right by them. I look right at both of them, and I smile and wave with blood all over my face. So we pull in, and Mike gets out, and he's like, sees him and waves to him too. He's like, yeah. So he goes in to get the cigarettes. And afterwards, Mike told me the guy at the counter looked at me weird. Yeah, because we're covered in blood. So he comes out of the gas station, goes to get into the car, into the truck, and all of a sudden I hear footsteps, like running, like on concrete. I'm like, what the hell is that? I look over, I'm in the passenger seat. I look over, and pointed at me is a gun. So Mike is already in the car. He's not all the way in the car. He has the door open, and he has the keys in the ignition, and the other cop is pointing a gun at him. So we're just frozen there for a second. And the cop yells to Mike, with your left hand, turn off the ignition. So Mike goes to turn off the ignition with, of course, his right hand. The cop told him with the left because it's awkward. And he goes to do it, and he goes, I said with your left hand, screams it. Mike screamed so loud, and he would never admit this, but it was very high pitched. Anyways, I would have done the same fucking thing, man.
Right,
you know.
right.
So he turns off the car. These guys look like their eyes are bugging out of their head, like they've been on a caffeine bender. Their eyes are just like, holy crap. Because what we didn't realize is when they came up to the truck, we're running up to the truck, they both looked in the back of the cab, and they saw all the bodies, and they saw all of the garbage bags. And
Right.
also what they noticed when we pulled in is, what we didn't notice, is that one of the barrels of blood had spilled in the back and was pouring out the back. And I guess there's poachers around in that area, so that's what they thought we were. But when they saw like an arm, a leg, a head, and they're all covered in blood and with garbage bags, they were they were just terrified. They're like, so they pull us out. And then what makes this worse is, so I start putting 2 and 2 together. I get out of the truck and I look in the back. And when he's looking, the cop's looking in the back of the cab. I look in the back of the cab. I look at him and I start laughing. That's a great thing to do. What a fucking idiot I was. Oh my God. I start laughing because in my mind, I'm like, oh my God, this is so funny. They think that's real. I have a gun pointed to my head. What a dumbass. Maybe I shouldn't start. So I start saying, what was I saying? No, you have it all wrong. Oh my God, this is so funny. He goes, I don't see what's so fucking funny about this. So then he grabs us. They handcuff us. We're over towards the cop cars, and we're just trying to say, it's fake. It's fake. It's not real. We were working on a film. Channel the Corn, whatever. It's got David Carradine, blah, blah, blah. Malachi. So finally, there's like 8 cop cars show up. They're all there. They're all looking at us like we're, like they want to kill us. They're like, ugh. So as all of this is happening, this chaos, like I'm looking at Mike and I'm like, I'm whispering, can you believe this shit? Are we going to like like, what's going on? So as all this chaos is erupting, the sound guy pulls in from the film that we were just working on. We had just worked like 12 hours with this guy, got to know him and everything. You know, he's this nice guy. I can't remember his name. Really nice guy. But apparently he pulls in right as this shit is happening, pulls in, sees us. We look at him. We're like, let's say his name is Frank. We're like, Frank. He just keeps on going and doesn't even stop, goes right out the exit, looks right at us. And we're like, you motherfucker. And he could have just said, no, he's like, I'm not having any part of this. No.
I don't know what you two psychos are doing.
Yeah. So finally they figure out that it's fake. One of them goes in there and they see the foam under something. And so the guy comes up to us, handcuffs us, and he says, I'm sorry and everything, man, but when you guys came up, we first thought you were poachers. And then when I saw those bodies, man, holy crap. And you started laughing. He goes, I'm going to tell you something. You would have made one false move, anything, I would have shot you. And I said, I know, I'm sorry I laughed, but you have to understand. He goes, that it was just something that effects guys always talk about. Like, can you imagine if we got pulled over with this shit in our car? And it happened to us. And it was insane. And
I can only imagine seeing you two like just grinning and waving at these cops, just covered in blood like a couple of jackasses.
Yeah, I think I had like a white shirt on. No, you know what I had on? I know exactly. I had a Sublime shirt on, a white Sublime shirt on, and it had a little tiny logo. The rest of it was just covered in blood. Like the whitest shirt you could imagine, just covered in blood. And, as you can see in my complexion, I'm basically like transparent white here. So blood on me looks like it's just ridiculous. I look like a ghost. So with the blood splats all over my face, it's just stupid. Just, I look back on that. I could have died. I could have been shot. That's the way to go. Stupid effects guy gets shot for laughing because, just I can imagine that. But yeah, there's some great times back then, and that's the thing. Looking back on that time, it was a time where, you worked. I mean, we worked all day and for 12 hours, and I loved it. Loved every second of it. My back hurt, everything hurt, but it was great. It was fun.
This is when you were working for Soda FX, at least.
Soda FX, yeah. At the time, it was owned by Roy Kinnear and Jerry Macaluso, and some of the best bosses I've ever had. I hope I didn't butcher their last names either. But Jerry still does. Jerry owned a toy company in the 2000s. He started and sold it, I believe. It was under Soda Toys. And then it became, I think, PCS Toys, I believe. And he did figurines, did sculpture. The guy's amazing. Just look up his name. He's absolutely amazing. I'm still friends with him on Facebook. I talk to him all the time. He's fantastic. About a year ago, I posted something on his site about Richard Elfman movie, Danny Elfman's brother. We worked on Modern Vampires, and the movie is just pure chaos, but it was some of the best times I've ever had, with Casper Van Diem in it. Oh God, who else? There's so many other actors that were in that movie, but it was such a great time. But the movie was just chaos. But I remember looking back and just saying, I'll never do this again. I mean, now where we work, it's corporate and everything like that. I couldn't imagine going into work and today, what am I going to do? A naked vampire is just going to run down and stab somebody and rip off their head and drink their blood. Oh, and by the way, it's Kim Cattrall. It's just like, that's what my work is right now. I'm going to watch Kim Cattrall lift up Udo Kier's head and drink from it. I mean, come on, that's pretty cool. I mean,
that is.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. And I miss that kind of stuff. But what I don't miss is basically being a freelancer, and you are constantly looking for work. Because even though I would work for Soda Effects, and I was young back then too, and they took care of me. They really did. I mean, when I went out there, I was pretty green, and basically everything that I thought that, I'm pretty good at this. Oh, I was shit. I mean, I worked with some of the best sculptors in the world, and they, knock you down a peg or two or 100. Jerry himself is an amazing sculptor. There's so many, the list goes on and on, but just seeing these people and just taking some little bits from them that I could was just an honor. But, those times, I look back on it and it's like I was constantly updating my resume. Just imagine constantly looking for a job. Like either if you get laid off or something happens at your job, then you have to, that stress, it's constant. Because even if you have a job right now, you're constantly worried about the future. Because if they're not working, you're not working. So you go to other companies and they don't care. They understand. I mean, I worked for Kyoto Brothers as well too. They're the famous guys that did Killer Clowns from Outer Space. They've done a lot of movies. They've done a lot of things, special effects wise. But those brothers directed Killer Clowns from Outer Space and did all of the stuff. So working in that shop, oh, so fun. I worked on a movie called, I believe it's called King Cobra with Pat Morita. I don't know if I'm credited in IMDb for that, but I did the scales and the teeth for that Cobra. Helped out with the skins and everything. In the movies, I haven't seen it. It's probably pretty bad. But, it had a cool giant Cobra in it. And I got to do that with the Kyoto Brothers. I get to go into the shop and, I grew up with this stuff. I mean, I watched Killer Clowns from Outer Space tons of times. That movie to me is it's so funny and it's so great. It's so tongue in cheek. And to be in that same shop, to walk by and there they are. There's the Killer Clowns from Outer Space. They're sitting right there. The actual ones, when I was a kid, watched them just in awe because those things were amazing. So yeah, it was a great time. But if you're anything like me, if you're hypochondriac about things as far as your future and stuff like that, that was definitely not the career to get into, because you kind of have to have a lackadaisical look on life, which I don't, which Jerry does. I mean, Jerry told me one time, when I wasn't working, and it was one of the first times my bank account hit a negative. And I'm like, oh my God, what's going to happen? He goes, you're just going to die. You know that. You're going to die. He goes, it's just math. And he said to me, he goes, you know how many times it's happened to me? It's math. I wish I could think that way, but I can't. So I look at it now as I can still not do the exact same stuff, but as long as I get to paint stuff on my own and do stuff like bands, anything with art, sculpt stuff or paint my Godzilla things or alien things, then that's fine for me. I look back on that and I look now and say, that's fine for me.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of people that are now able to do that and actually realize that they can just do things as a hobby. I mean, I feel like today, and I could be wrong, but today everyone's pushing oh, make your hobby into a hustle, make money off it. No, fuck that. How about my hobby be my hobby and I just enjoy it for what it is?
Yeah. I mean, it's one thing now. I guess really the only way to do that is to own your own effects company, which good luck with that. Especially in the 80s and 90s when it was booming, a lot of people, they made tons of money. But now, I mean, there's not many left. I mean, Stan Winston is still around. K&B is still around. But I've been out of it for so long. There might be more, but I mean, I know a lot of them closed down because of CGI too.
That was a big transition in the early 2000s, right?
Oh yeah, mostly actually in the night, right when I was really getting into it. I had sunk my feet in. I started to get into it. I'm like, yeah, I'm going to do this. Nope, and it was devastating. It was. I mean, that's what I wanted to do my whole life, is to work in special effects, and I actually did it. I actually met people and I went and, worked on it. And then to have that taken away from you, I'm not going to lie, it sucked. It really sucked. That year when I came back to Rochester, it sucked. And then it wasn't until I got my footing in, went to school again, and learned to like other things too, and not to be pigeonholed into one thing, and to appreciate my time that I had. That's the thing. I was out there for a few years, and I appreciate just that.
Yeah.
That alone, the experience, meeting these people, working with actors and these incredible artists, that they gave me a shot to go out there and do that. Even though it was short lived, my experiences, I'm still talking about them today, 25
Right.
years later, about Children of the Corn Part 5. Not the greatest movie, but to me, every time somebody brings that movie up, or if I see it, like, oh God, I'll never forget that.
Well, how
That's
many guys or girls, for that matter, in the world have had Jason Voorhees fart on them?
oh my God. God, that was funny.
I mean, there's
You
probably a
know,
good handful because it sounds like he might have done that a few times, but still, like,
yeah.
that's an
And then
experience that you wouldn't have gotten otherwise.
and the people that I worked with have gone on to do. Now, people may say this is not great things, but they've done things. The the effects coordinator for, I believe it was Children of the Corn Part 5, and a couple movies that we worked on at Soda, it was Anthony C. Ferrante, who I used to hang out with and stuff. And he may or may not remember me, but I used to hang out with this guy. And if you look him up now, he's the director of all the Sharknado movies. So, I mean, look,
Right,
they're
right.
stupid movies and everything, but they know they're stupid, but he made a living off of that, of, something ridiculous like that. But he was the effects coordinator of that. So I met him, all these people that, these great artists and actors, and, it's fantastic. It was such a fantastic experience. And instead of just looking back and going, oh, I woe for those days, no, I love my life now. I love having my dork cave down there that my wife doesn't want to kill me for, that she's acceptive of my, of all of this shit that I have down there. I mean, I love just doing that and talking about it and talking with other people, and, the passion that we have for effects, monsters, creatures, and stuff. It makes it keeps you young.
Yeah,
That's the thing. Playing in bands and you know collecting all this goofy monster stuff makes me happy, and that's the whole point, right? I mean, unless you're miserable, I don't know. I mean,
yeah.
do what makes you happy.
Well, that
You
was one
know?
of the cool things, when I first got to know you, and you would be sitting there looking at, a Godzilla figurine or an alien one and being like, I wonder if I could use a different texture to make this tongue more realistic. And I'm sitting over here like, the fuck is he talking about? But as time goes on, like, I start to realize, and then you show me a couple of things here and there and kind of explain a little more about the background. It's like, oh, this guy knows what he's doing. That's pretty fucking cool when you really think about it.
Well, yeah, and that's what you call like kit bashing, is what they when you add on to like a figure, or if you know I think every single one of my figures, almost every single one, I do something to it. Even the ones that are crazy expensive, like the gigantic ones that you were talking about. Couple of them I'll either, and I know, look, they're mass produced, but they're really not. There's only like 500 of them made, sometimes 1,000, which seems like a lot, but it's not. And they're all hand painted, and I understand they got to get them out and everything. And as is, they're incredible. But what I'll do is, like, for instance, on like the 2019, I thought the teeth could be just glossier a little bit, like the inside of the mouth could be a little wetter. So I'll literally, all I'll do is just put some gloss in there.
Hmm.
Um, or I'll paint something a certain way, just little touch ups that I want to do. And people are like, oh, you just ruined it. Not really. No, I didn't. I'm not getting rid of these things. They're mine. I can do what I
Right.
want with them. Um, so I do little things like that in like the kits that I do and stuff. But yeah, if I can even do little stuff like that feeds me as far as my creativity that I need. Who knows what I'm going to do to this 54 when it comes, when I have the gigantic 54. Maybe
Yeah.
nothing.
Let's start with, where the hell are you gonna put it, bro?
I don't know. I don't know. Like my
Well,
buddy Rich.
one of the coolest ones you did, though, that I liked the most, like the painting stuff and the attention to detail that you have to them, is I mean, to the naked eye, it doesn't look like anything, but then when you explain it, it's like, oh, okay, wow, holy shit, you put some work into this. But the one I like the most, to be honest with you, is that LED strip you just put into Godzilla's ass there to make his belly glow and look like, he's, I don't know, is it called priming? Is that what he does before he fucking.
Yeah, I think that for the Shin Godzilla, he's like radiating, I believe is what it is, and he's just basically he's a walking mountain of radiation. And I was just sitting there looking at him, and the way that these things come, they because they're so big, and people complain about it that you have to put the tail on, and what you literally have to do is because they're vinyl, you have to heat the ass up. My buddy Rich Ezzo will say, "Own the hole," and you heat it up with a hair dryer, and you just squish it in till it's squishy soft, and you squish it in. And before I did that, I'm like, what if I put LED lights up this thing? So I just shoved them up his ass, and it's it. It's so simple. I mean, it's just there's no. I mean, I literally just shoved them up there. They're just like I didn't carefully put them in there. I just turned them upside down, threw them down in there, closed it up. There's a little thing sticking out of his butt, connected it, and now I have a little remote control so it can pulsate. That's it. That easiest mod. And I didn't do anything to the figure. It's not like I ruined the figure or anything. I could take it out if I want. But yeah.
It's really imaginative to be able to put an LED light like that, just as light strip in there, and makes it look. I mean, it takes it from a figurine to something that's like interactive, and
Yeah.
I don't know, it's really cool. For anyone listening to this, if you have a care to see any of it, you can actually go to Fresh Vinyl Reviews on YouTube, and Greg actually did a thing on Fresh Vinyl, and I forget the guy's name. What's
Rich
his name,
Ezzo.
Greg? Rich Ezzo. Okay, you just talked about him. My bad.
Yep.
Sorry, Rich, if you do hear this, probably not. But if you want to see any of like parts of that collection, just watch that video. It's like 14, 15 minutes, but it gives you a really good idea. Greg actually breaks down a couple of pieces that he has. So if you're interested, check that video out.
Yeah, and now I look back at that and I'm like, wow, it's grown even since then tremendously.
Yeah.
Like my wife is now to the point of like, look, it's not about cost because we can afford. I can afford these things. It's now just about space. I have no idea where I'm going to put this stuff. I just don't know. But I had to get that 54. If something doesn't, I know completionists that are out there. Like Rich Ezzo used to be like that. He's now scaled down. He still has so much more than me. But I know completionists, and they buy everything, even if they don't even like the character. Like they'll buy an Ebera. Ebera is the sea monster that he fought in Godzilla versus Ebera, or Ebera the Terror. Like, I wouldn't buy that. I don't really like Ebera, but people just buy them. And like, where do you put it? It's just there's people that devote their whole house. Their whole house is the collection. Now, look, my wife is a saint for putting up with this, but come on, and she collects some things too. I mean, she does.
Sure.
She's got some things too, but not at a level of me. And the way it happened was the way this whole collecting room came about was my mother-in-law. My mother-in-law was down in the basement, and it's a finished basement, and there was nothing down there. It was just used for storage. And she's like, you have all of this stuff all over the place, and some of it's packed up. You know, all these interesting figures. Why don't you make this like your guys' dork room, both of your guys? Okay. And it just turned in kind of like how my mother-in-law will put in ideas to my wife to do projects where it's like, oh, and then it turns into this thing, which is great, but we're like, oh boy, that's what happened. But except if for my wife, it was me. And it just, she created a monster because now that's all it is down there. And you could still, you've been down there, you can walk down, you can relax. I go down there all the time, but it's becoming to the point now where I have to make some decisions on what I want to display or sell off possibly. I have a lot of doubles of things.
But it's more than this, just that. And we've only touched on Godzilla. I mean, you have a whole thing of aliens. You have Cthulhu I saw down there. I think a Rancor I saw. You have who am I thinking of? Nightmare on Elm Street. I already forgot. Freddy. You've got Freddy
Yep.
things down there. I saw some Venom figurines. I mean, there's a bunch of different things. There's a movie collection down there. There's guitars. There's a really cool TV center for you to chill and watch. I imagine most of your Godzilla films. So it's
Yeah.
a lot more than just Godzilla, and I think that's what makes it
Oh,
really unique and really cool. Is that it really, like, I feel like when I walked down there, like the first thing that popped in my head is like, okay, this is Greg. If I had to make a room that was Greg Better's, this is the room
yeah.
because it's got
And
all of it.
yeah. And with my wife who adores gardening and plants, I mean, she's really into it. That's what the outside of the house is now turning into. Now on our balcony, she's got tomatoes growing out there, and that's what she loves. She loves that stuff. I mean, outside she's got a rose bed. We're turning this whole thing into this giant. And why not?
Yeah.
Why would you want any? I always tell her too. Whatever you love to do it. From motorcycles with us to everything, just do it. Just
Because I got a chance to meet her and talk to her too when I came over, and the vibe that I get is something that I've told people the entire time, at least that I've been married, is that marriage is not about compromise. It's about understanding and just
yes,
understanding what the other person needs and being able to, figure that out between the two of you. You don't have to compromise. You just have to get it and you have to understand what they need.
yeah. I mean, she knew what she was getting into. The first date we ever had.
Shit, I
First
hope
date we
so.
ever had, I told her straight out, I'm a dork. I got toys all over my place. I love Godzilla. I love that. I mean, because that's me. I'm not gonna bullshit. This is who I am. I'm a huge dork. That's it. That's my crutch. It's not like I'm, some deviant or anything. I love Godzilla. I love Alien. I love, pop culture as far as 80s, 90s horror movies. This is who I am. And she was like, cool, that's awesome. You're passionate about things. That's
You're also
cool.
the guy that has the cool shit at work. I remember
Yeah.
I said this story to you. I'll tell it again now because I finally actually have it recorded. But the first day I went up to this new department, I'm sitting right next to Greg, and one of our coworkers goes, "Hey, don't touch a single thing on his desk because he will rip your face off or he'll murder you." And I was like, "Oh shit, I better not mess it." And of course, my clumsy ass knocks over a whole bunch of like bobbleheads or pop whatever those
I know.
figurines
I think they
are.
were just like NECA figures. They were just like regular old NECA figures. For people out there, NECA is I can't remember, National Entertainment something, but they're amazing at figures, and they're not expensive, but the detail is amazing on them. So there was like alien ones. There was Ash from Evil Dead. There was all kinds of ones. It was all horror movies, some Godzilla. It was just a hodgepodge of your basic 80s, 90s nostalgia creatures. That's basically what it is. But they're fun. You can play with them. They're durable. They don't have to worry about breaking them or anything like that if they fall. So that's basically what they were.
Well, that day I had tested that for you, and none of them broke. And I put them all back, and I was like, fuck, this guy's going to kill me. And you came in the next morning, or I came in, I should say, because you worked like an earlier shift. And I was like, "Hey, man, I'm sorry I accidentally knocked over your stuff yesterday." And you're like, "Oh, that's cool." And I was like, "Oh, you're good. You're good with that? Like, you're not going to murder me?" And then I was like, "Well, let me ask him what the fuck these things are." Because I got that vibe at that point. Like, you were just chill. And obviously, you're really into that stuff. And you were
Yeah.
really open about it. It was super cool. And actually, of course, naturally snowballed for anybody that listens to this that worked with us up at that location knows. For me, that was also where I learned the most about movies. Like, I remember sitting there listening to you guys talking about Flash Gordon. To me, it's the worst movie ever. It's a terrible movie. Why the fuck do you guys like this?
It's kind of falls back to why would I like two guys in rubber suits beating the shit out of each other? And you can clearly tell it's completely fake. It's a combination of nostalgia. It's a combination of how goofy it is. I just watched something on Flash Gordon the other night. Actually, I think there's a documentary on the guy that played him. Side note: that guy's now a bodyguard, like an international bodyguard. The guy that played Flash Gordon, he's like,
what?
oh yeah, man, he's like serious too. But anyways, Flash Gordon it's cheesy, it's stupid. The stories like of how that movie was made, that originally George Lucas wanted to do it. George Lucas wanted to do it, and instead of
Really?
oh yeah, so the whole thing is that's what George Lucas wanted to do was Flash Gordon, but he couldn't get the rights for it, so he made his own Flash Gordon called Star Wars. And then when Star Wars came out, Dilo De Laurentiis, guy that did like the new Kong, he was famous 70s and 80s producer. After Star Wars came out, he says, "Well, I'm going to make it. I'm going to do it." And the back and forth, everything that happened with that movie, we won't get into it now, but it's hysterical. It is just, they were making like stuff like up on the fly, like uh, the disaster that shoot was. And I think that's all part of it too. But as a kid growing up, it had Queen for the soundtrack. And remember, in 80, that stuff that looks so cheesy and stupid now, that was for you
Cutting
younger
edge.
for you younger folks out there, that was cool. That was cool. Like the puffy paint looking shirts and like all that shit, like the neon, all that stuff was cool. So to me, as I was 5 or 6 when that came out, I'd watch that religiously. And there's some gory parts in it. Like that's when PG was no fucking joke. PG was like guys getting their hearts ripped out and shit. So it's our buddy Jason Evans at work. That's one of his favorite movies too. Me and him bonded over that. I mean, and yeah, it's horrible. It's terrible, but I love it. I mean, I love that movie. It's
Well, one of the things I learned, like talking to you and the other guys that we would talk to up there, was how to appreciate a film for what it is. Like for me growing up, a movie had to be a good movie, and it had to be a good movie because it was just a good movie. Whereas now, like, we've talked about this extensively as well, like Birdemic. Like I understand why that became like a cult classic film. I get it now. So you learn to appreciate like the story, the lore, how things were made, how difficult it was to make them. That type of stuff is really cool.
that's one where if you know the lore before you watch it, it makes it even funnier. If you get
Yes.
to know that guy and his personality and his delusion, you kind of feel sorry for him, but there's and just his arrogance on, doesn't this look amazing? Doesn't this look great? That, and it's kind of sad, but it's kind of, I hate to say mean, but I'm sorry, it's funny. It's funny. Like he doesn't know what he's
Right.
doing. He has
But
no idea, but he did it. But he made the movie. That's
right.
the thing.
How many of us can say, "Hey, I had a goal. I'm going to achieve this." Now, granted, he didn't get his blockbuster motion picture deal, whatever it is, but he made a fucking
There was a
movie.
sequel. They
There
made a
was a
sequel.
sequel.
Oh, there was a sequel. I mean, the dude,
Talked about a 3D.
people are like, we're talking about it. You have
Yes.
huge people in the industry talking about Birdemic. Now, is it for the right reasons? No, because it's terrible. Same thing with The Room. But and that to me is what's funny. Now, when somebody, now not the shit on Anthony Ferrante, Anthony C. Ferrante or anything like that, but
Sure.
the reason why I can't really get into the Sharknado movies is because they're basically a parody of that. They know they're bad. It's supposed to be bad,
Yes.
and that's what it is. It's just not for me. That doesn't make me laugh. What makes me laugh is just the absurd. Okay, Sharknado, haha. Okay, then I start watching, and it's like, okay, it's just a one note punchline to me. I'm sorry, that may be harsh, but it is. It's just a big punchline. The whole movie is just the giant punchline. Where when you watch a movie that, and again, this is gonna sound really mean, but he thinks this is fantastic, delusional. It's kind of like the American Idol when those people went on there and they think they can sing, and and you think this is fake. I don't think it is. There's people out there that think they can really sing. It's kind of like the same thing. It's like they think this stuff looks amazing, and it's not. And that's what makes it so funny. That's what made The Room so funny, knowing the history of it. I mean, they made a movie on it.
I finally watched that, Greg. I
Oh, you
found
watched The
it.
Room? Isn't it
I
amazing?
finally watched it.
Oh, hi, Mark.
Oh my God.
How's your sex life? It's
Holy
amazing.
shit.
Isn't
The
it great?
dialogue, just
Oh
how,
my God, it's terrible.
what the and you know what? The Room, like as far as dialogue is concerned, exactly like Birdemic. Like
Yeah.
nobody talks that way. That's
Yeah.
not how people talk.
Favorite line in the movie is, "Oh, hi, doggy." It's just that you could totally tell it's all ADR. It's all added in. Like it's so fast. Like he walks into that room and he's like, "You're my favorite." The woman, "You're my favorite customer." "Oh, hi, doggy," and he just walks. It's so great. And then the endless amounts of football playing. What in the fuck was that? And the funny thing is, I had never seen that movie. Who got me to see that movie was my wife. I had never heard of the run.
Really?
Never heard of Tommy Wiseau. Never heard of this. I watched it with her, and I couldn't fucking believe what I was watching because that's a movie where there's some money in it. Like it's not like
Yeah, he
Birdemic
put
where it's
some
like
real money
total
in it.
shit. It's not like it's like some like effort went into this, but it's like if you gave a decent low budget, like you gave somebody a budget for an independent movie, a decent budget, and it was run by somebody that's like a goddamn lunatic. Because I'm sorry, he is. No way. The guy's nuttier than a fruitcake. I mean, holy shit! And the story behind him, nobody knows where he's from. He says he's from Florida or someplace. He's like, no, you're not. You're from
No.
like Europe somewhere, dude.
Right.
Or you, I mean, where are you from? That's what makes it so interesting. The mystery behind this. Where did he get this money? Because he fronted all the money for this.
Right.
And it's just amazing. Oh my God. There's so many quotable lines from that. It's just, you're tearing out my heart. And just all of this shit. I'm so glad you watched it. Oh,
There's when I was watching it, and I'm watching like these terrible cuts and all like even the editing, it reminded me of what you said about Birdemic, about that boardroom scene where everyone's clapping and then
oh yeah.
and then they start clapping again and
Yeah,
then
and they don't understand about, you got to go back and fix that. And they don't. It's all just recorded right there. And oh, and that's what you can always find something. The movies that bore me the most are these, something that has a huge big budget in it, and it's just meh. Like you watch it and you just forget about it. It's not terrible. It's not bad. It's not good.
Sure.
But it's just, nah. That's nothing. Give me a big hunkin' piece of shit. Oh, I love it. Love it. Oh, there's so many too. There's so many.
There
But
is. You can tell too, and the other thing that I also like is like more independent stuff, that like stuff again, stuff you've never heard of, and that you can tell like somebody. And there's mistakes, right? There might be a line of dialogue that could have been cleaned up, or an edit that could have been done better, or a prop that was kind of like, but you can tell like the passion that
yeah,
people put into these, especially like the better ones. Granted, I'm not talking about The Room or Birdemic at this point, but and I can't even think of any off the top of my head, but you can tell. And that was one of the things that I learned listening to you talk about movies for literally like 2 years or whatever it was that I spent up there with you, learning how to identify like what is good dialogue and bad. Because I remember the first time I talked to you about movies specifically, we had talked about the prequels, and for me, unlike you, I grew up on the prequels. Those were my Star Wars movies, so to me they were cool. Darth Maul was the best fucking villain ever. Until you were like, okay, chill a minute. Let's dissect this a little bit. And then you realize like, okay, yeah, it had to have been insanely hard for Liam Neeson and Ewan McGregor to act on a fucking just a green screen
yeah.
with nothing around them.
And what also too is that, I mean, and this has been talked to death. I mean, as far as like the prequels go, and again, kind of the same thing with Godzilla '98. With those, I've learned to appreciate them more. It's sad because I truly believe if they were directed by somebody else, those could have been really good movies. It's all about direction, though. You look at the old Star Wars movies. When I say old, my God, I saw those all in the theater. There was a sense of realism to them. And what I mean by that is you always had a character like Han Solo that was you and me. I don't believe in any of this shit. Like,
Right.
he was that guy that just, like his acting was so good because it was just so natural. Like, all this dogma and religion and all this shit. Like he's talking about the Jedi. Look, I've been around this universe here and there. I haven't seen nothing like that. Just that
Right.
alone is like, that's cool. And the dirtiness of it. It wasn't, that's what I think the prequels were missing. They were missing the realistic. Now I know, again, talking about Flash Gordon,
Yep.
that's where Lucas was getting his. That's where Star Wars came from. So if you look at those prequels, it's very Flash Gordon. I mean, that's what they were. If you look at those old serials, the old comic strips from back in the 30s, and going up into the when they did the, I can't remember when the serials were around, the filmed ones. I think they were actually in the 30s too, but they were cheesy as hell. I mean, they were just run of the mill comic strips. He even, a lot of people don't even realize this. The crawl, the famous Star Wars crawl, comes from
Yep.
Flash Gordon. If you watch old Flash Gordon, the serial ones, he totally ripped it off. I mean,
I had no idea.
Oh, it is completely Flash Gordon. It
It's
is
crazy
100%.
because that crawl is like iconic today
It's
of
Flash
being
Gordon.
Star Wars.
Absolutely, it is Flash
Holy
Gordon.
shit.
Look up old, and you just Google that, and it's like that's where Star Wars comes from, is Flash Gordon, and it's just so funny that I wonder what would have happened if he did get the rights and he made a Flash Gordon movie. Honestly, I don't think it would have been as good, because he came up with these
As
characters.
good as Flash Gordon?
Oh no, it wouldn't have been as good as Flash Gordon. There's no way. It would. I mean, I'm sorry, it wouldn't have been as good. Star Wars is so good. I think Star Wars is good because he didn't get to make.
Flash. I
Yes.
gotcha. I gotcha.
Because he had to come up with his own characters. And then it grew from there, the father-son relationship and all of that. And because of the time when it came out in the 80s, when film, they started to take it seriously when Star Wars came out. The way it was filmed, very gritty. I think that what made it look so good is science fiction films before that, everything looked so clean and nice. This was one of the first times that we saw, no, it's not. It's dirty and gross and grimy, the robots. I mean, a lot of people are, when watching them recently again, my wife now is a huge Star Wars fan. I think she's even more than me. We went back and watched them all again. How gross everything looks.
Yeah.
Like R2D2 and C3PO, it looks like somebody threw shit all over them. They just are rusty and gross. Everybody's got dirt all over their face. It's just, it's what made Aliens so good too. I mean, they were just truckers in space.
That you watched when you were 4?
What's that? Let me see. 5, I believe. 4 or 5.
Sorry. We're splitting hairs here, Greg.
There's
I
was
no way
young.
in Christ that my parents would have let me watch that shit.
And that's what started this whole thing, was really that movie. I had seen Star Wars, and look, it had an influence on everybody my age.
Yeah,
it did.
Sure.
But it wasn't until Alien, really. My father, for some reason, my father and mother had seen it in the theater. My dad, of course, loved it. My mom actually liked it too. She thought it was terrifying, but at the time, everybody did. My uncle actually had screaming nightmares about it.
Dude, no way.
Oh, yeah. He woke up in the middle of the night screaming after he saw that movie. Because at the time, we had never seen anything like that. As far as a creature design, as far as just a movie like that, of the body horror. And just, something invading somebody like that and bursting out of your chest. But
another iconic scene.
Oh yeah, it's horrifying. But when I saw that, and the way that Ridley Scott filmed that, you never knew the scale of this thing until the end. At first, when I saw Alien for the first time, I thought it was giant. I thought there was 2 aliens, because the way it was shot, and probably because I was 5, I thought there was 2 of them. I thought there was one that was the size of a man, and then I thought there was a giant one because of the way that he shot it when it grabs the first guy and pulls him up. And that's the way he shot it. You're like, what the hell is this thing? You couldn't tell if it had 3 arms, 4 arms, because he knew the limitations of a guy in a suit, and he worked around it. And he also had one of the greatest artists that ever lived, was H.R. Geiger. I mean, shit. I mean, the guy's mind alone is a nightmare. Um, so when I saw that, I was intrigued. And I actually felt sorry for the alien at the end when it got blown out of the airlock. Because I remember the movie ended. My father looked over at me. He goes, are you all right? Because he thought for sure, oh my God, this kid's not going to sleep for 3 weeks. Oh God,
Sure.
And I'm like, I felt really, I was sad. Like I looked disturbed and I go, I don't know if I started to cry, but I was like upset. I go, I didn't like that they killed it at the end. It was just doing what it was supposed to do. It's just, and my father, I was like, what the fuck is the matter with you? That look he gave me, he just was like, oh my God, what the fuck? Did I just create a monster? And he did. He did. He created a monster. From that point on, all I wanted to do, that's when really effects came into my head. Like, and then I researched it. And back then, you didn't have the internet. Shit, you didn't have anything. So I had to go to the library and look at books. And there was very few things about Alien because they wanted to keep it a secret. Back then, they wanted to keep stuff secret. And then you learn that the guy made it actually, HR guy made it out of like an actual human skull, car parts, all of the things that you wouldn't imagine. Carl Rambolini, who did the aliens in Close Encounters of the Third Kind, did the mechanic work in it. So that's why it looks so real. The mouth work, everything, the drooling, just how disgusting it was. And it was blending this weird, like, biomechanical sexual veal. That's what I think makes it so disturbing. Because let's face it, folks, it's a giant dick with teeth. It's what it is.
Yeah.
You may not, and people, I can't believe that people didn't, like, back then though, I didn't think of that. Maybe because I was a kid, but even back then growing up, it wasn't until later that people started saying, that's a big dick, or the face hugger, it's a vagina. I mean, and that's what brings it back to nature. And, people can look at that and go, you can make that horrifying. I mean, it is. I mean, it's basically, not to get too crude here, but it's basically the rape of a man. A man gets raped, forcibly impregnated by something, and then it has forcibly comes out of him. It's the first movie like where it's like turns the tides, because you went through all the 70s exploitation movies where women were always brutalized and everything. At the height of the 70s, 79, this comes out, and there's a first time like, holy shit, seeing something like that, and the life cycle of this parasite thing. And it's a big dick running around killing people.
Or a tiny one running across the table after it blows your chest out.
Exactly. Exactly. I mean, with teeth. And come on, the slime that comes out of it, what does it look like? I mean, I can't believe people at the time really didn't maybe they did because I was younger and they were like, oh, we didn't talk about it. But I mean, watching it now, it's like, holy shit, a giant dick that has basically semen coming out of it. I mean, you can't get any more. I mean, Christ. And you look back at it, it's like, I can't believe it. Like, it is what it is. And I think that's what makes it, part of it, so terrifying. The biomechanical, the skull that you can kind of see under there, like, what the fuck is that? And that it's just an invasive thing. And its sole purpose is just to multiply.
I never thought about the invasive part, but you're 100% correct.
Yeah.
Like how freaked out you are about having something entering your body.
Yeah.
And just nesting inside of your chest or your stomach. Yeah.
Holding you down. Oh God, it's so funny how it like especially with today, holding you down, knocking you out, paralyzing you so you can't do anything, and then impregnating you through your fucking mouth.
Golly jeez.
With a vagina. I'm sorry, it's a vagina. You look at the underside of that thing, it's a vagina. It's almost like a big fuck you. And then it comes out a giant dick.
And I never thought about like culturally either. Like, women are normally brutalized in all these movies in the 70s. And now in this one, you have a heroine. She's the one that makes it out, and all the other guys get fucked. Literally.
Exactly. And what's brilliant about that movie is it had, I don't want to say it had no names, because Tom Skerritt was very well known. And you think going into this movie, well, of course, he's going to be the heroine. he's going to be in the heroine. He's going to be the hero in this.
Right.
And no,
Nope.
he's fucking dead.
Yeah.
And you never know that's what's the brilliance of that, is that you don't know who's going to live or die. Because once he dies, you're like, oh shit. Well, now what?
Right. All the cards are off the table now.
Yeah, and that's what makes it so good.
Yeah.
That's why people go back and forth with Aliens. Which one do you like more? Which one? I think Aliens is more pop culture.
Okay.
Is definitely the more quotable one. It's fun. It's scary, but it's fun. It's actiony, and it's great. But I don't want to even compare the two. People compare them. Alien and Aliens are so different, but they work so well together, and that's what makes a great sequel. That's what makes an amazing sequel. Is that you can go into there, and I really don't know anybody that was a fan of Alien that hates Aliens.
Right.
I mean, I know there's people out there that hate it. The Queen, blah blah blah. I could just hear it now. I don't like the life cycle. They changed it, but I mean, even H.R. Geiger loved the Queen. The idea of a queen being there. But yeah.
Well, let's keep going really quick. I know I've taken a ton of your time, but
Dude, I'm fine,
last
man.
thing,
Keep on going. I got all right, man. I'm good.
last thing for me at least in the whole Alien thing is, how do you feel? Because I just on a whim a couple of weeks ago just watched Prometheus,
Mm-hmm.
and I feel like I don't fucking understand the point of the whole, like, quote unquote origin story there. Do you feel like when they go back and do these, like, and we just talked about Star Wars too, prequels or I forget the term for the later ones, but it's sequels, sorry. That was a fucking dumb thing for me to say.
No.
Do you feel like people or directors, writers, artists, effects artists, actors should have the ability to, like, make those type of changes or have to add to the story? Like, what are your thoughts, especially with the Alien franchise?
Sure. I mean, look, and it was Ridley Scott coming back to it. So, you thought, I mean, at least I thought, okay, the problem is with Prometheus is that was originally not supposed to really be an Alien movie.
Oh, really?
The script started out as an Alien movie, and then he took over it. He said, I want to do something original with it. He wanted to do basically Chariots of the Gods, is what he wanted to do. He even said numerous times, the alien is done. The alien has been played out. The actual creature, we're talking about the xenomorph.
Yes.
It's played out. He didn't want to do it anymore. And of course, I'm sure studio executive says, well, we got to throw it in there somehow. And at the end, we all know it's called the Deacon, comes out of the engineer. Now, with me, I didn't think the movie was terrible. I thought it was gorgeous, for one. It's a gorgeous movie. It's shot so beautifully. The CGI in it is impeccable. I did not like the story. I just thought it was convoluted and confusing at times. And there's no, what are the rules? There's no rules.
Right.
Everything, black goo goes here, turns somebody into something, comes out of his eye. Impregnate sex, and then squid baby comes out, and then it was just a jumble. To me, it was very messy, really pretty to look at, and I enjoyed elements of it. The other thing that I did not like about it is that the introduction of the engineers. Mm-hmm. To me, one of the scariest parts of Alien was just not knowing. Alien is very simple. They go to this ship. There's something on there. You don't know what it is. They get this egg. It's got this life cycle. Done. Aliens. Again, simple. And Ridley Scott always said, well, why doesn't everybody want to know what the space jockey is? That's what that alien is sitting there.
Yes.
And to me, what always made that so terrifying is my vision of that thing is that that's what its sole purpose was. It was fused to that fucking chair. It was miserable. And that's all it did was drive that ship. That's what it was, a biomechanical mess that was just made to drive that ship. And that was an actual creature, not I'm sorry, not Dr. Manhattan from fucking Watchmen in there. Because that's what it turned into. I mean,
Right.
to me, and again, I know what he was trying to do. It was ambitious, but it was so vague. The scientists were just in a movie that takes itself so seriously in the beginning. This is so serious. They picked the dumbest fucking scientists. First of all, these two guys show up and they're scared of corpses, but they stick their faces in like snake vaginas. Oh, come here, baby, come here. It's just, I was laughing at that part. I'm like, are you an idiot? Like, what the fuck's the matter with you? You're scared of a dead thing that's been dead for thousands of years, but you go and stick your face in something that you have no idea what it is. And again, if they didn't take it seriously, then that's one thing, but they took it seriously. It'd be like
Yeah.
Blade Runner or something like that. Another thing that Ridley Scott does. And most of his movies, there's not really a goofy, besides Legend, a goofy Ridley Scott movie. His movies are usually pretty fucking serious. You got Gladiator, you got Alien, you got Blade Runner. His movies are pretty serious. And then you do these really stupid things. It just went everywhere. It was like, what am I watching? And it's trying to be an Alien movie. And same thing with Alien Covenant, which was the sequel to Prometheus.
To
And
the
then now
prequel.
there's aliens. And
Yeah.
it doesn't, it just, and originally, and that's another one. When he first started that movie, he said, there's not going to be a xenomorph in this. There's no xenomorphs in this new one. This is going to be more about the engineers. I swear to God, it was like a month later, the title was Alien Covenant. Oh, it's an alien movie now. And you could tell that there's no plan.
Yeah.
There just isn't a plan there. And it's evident. There's evidence that there isn't because they don't make any sense. It's like they literally made this stuff up. And sometimes things are that are left mysterious are better. That's what's terrifying.
It's
What
the
you
fear of
don't
the
see.
unknown.
Yeah, for me, if they were ever going to do something with the space jockeys, I wanted it to be goddamn crazy. Like we're talking again, going back to like H.P. Lovecraft, horrifying stuff. And there were rumors that that's what Prometheus was supposed to be, like cosmic horror, like stuff that if we were to look upon, it's just so terrifying. Like there's supposed to be, the whole head thing. That thing was supposed to, the giant head, the statue. There was
Yep.
rumors that thing was supposed to be alive. Like it was supposed to like open up its eyes and like talk and shit. That's the kind of craziness. If you're going to do something like that, go nuts. And they didn't. It was to me disappointing. Very disappointing. Beautiful, nicely
It
shot.
was the planet that they were on,
Oh, it's
like when they had
gorgeous.
those like pan shots where you see them on their 4-wheelers or
Yeah.
whatever driving up to the temple. That looked really cool.
Yeah, they had some great sets. A
Yeah.
lot of in-camera stuff that they had. A lot of it was CG, but he believes like there was actual sets that they built, vehicles that they built. So I really enjoyed that. But when it comes down to it, if the story doesn't really grab you, and like why couldn't they get an actual aged actor instead of getting what's his name to play an old man? I don't.
With the and they put just like prosthetic whatever the
It
fuck
just
just to
looked.
make them look old.
Yeah, he
Yeah.
looked like Mr. Burns. It was just goofy. It's just you
Yeah.
could make any. Here's the thing, and you can make anything exceptional. You can take any premise, and people say, "Oh, it's just a monster movie. Oh, it's just this. Oh, it's just that." But you can take something that you would think would be absolutely goofy and make it one entertaining, serious, compelling, sad, and a great movie. The movie that I always go to, and I think you know where I'm going with this. The movie that I always go to when people say, "Oh, you should just take it for what it is, just a big, stupid, goofy movie like Transformers or something like that." You could make that good. You could make that amazing because there was a movie that came out in 2009 about freaking space bugs that came and they talked like this, and it was up for an Academy Award for Best Picture, District 9. It's incredible. It's sad. It's amazing. It's one of the best sci-fi movies in the past, dare I say, 50 years. It's incredible. An incredible movie about space bugs.
I mean, when you talk in space bugs, it's hard to beat Starship Troopers.
See, now, yeah, I love that movie. I do. It's great. But that's a campy that knows
is.
what it is.
Yes.
People shit on that movie when that came out, and I don't understand. You knew coming into it, the first frame. Now there's a movie like we're talking about Prometheus, where Prometheus takes itself seriously, and then they do really stupid things, so that takes you out of the movie. Whereas in Starship Troopers, right off the bat, this is a total common. This is just absolute like banter. It's just hysterically funny. I mean, it's a comedy. It really is. But it's gory as hell. It's fucking awesome. And it's done by Paul Verhoeven, the guy that did RoboCop. Same thing. RoboCop. When that came out, I was a kid. I was maybe 12, 13. When I saw that preview, first of all, I didn't know it was rated R. And, in previews, they can't show you all the cool, gory shit. I was like, this is going to be the dumbest fucking thing. First of all, RoboCop? This looks so stupid. The guy Peter Weller walking around like a robot, okay. And then it comes out and I go and see it. And it's just fucking blew me away. Fucking amazing. Tragic though, sad, that scene where he gets shot. You can make anything good. You can. You just have to have the right people to do it.
It's such a razor thin margin. And it's not just for movies. I mean, we're talking about music, we're talking about art, we're talking about anything that a person can craft. There's such a razor thin margin between it being what it was supposed to be as opposed to just like a complete I guess meme of itself, for lack of a better word. Like, it just turns super goofy, so I can't take this seriously. And I'll go back to last thing. I'll go back to when you were talking about when you saw Tarkin in Star Wars with the eyes. It takes you completely out of the movie. And the point of me watching a movie is I want to get lost in another story, in another place. I want to go somewhere else for a little while. So with certain movies, they've got to dance that line really carefully between, acknowledging what it is, but then keeping you into the story, glued into the whole thing. Because if I lose you at minute 45, you're gone until the end of the movie.
Well, with Tarkin, you may not have noticed it, but your brain did.
Right.
Your brain did. You really are like, whoa. You're even, you won't even say it. I don't care who you are. You look at that and you go, that guy's not there. Because there's other people that are walking around. They have little imperfections and stuff. And they did have imperfections. But it's just something about it that's just not there yet. I think Marvel is getting close to doing that with the de-aging process. Some of that stuff to me that's where I can say, holy shit. I mean, the first time that really wowed me was in Civil War when they de-aged Tony Stark, Robert Downey Jr. for that one little scene where they had his little hologram thing. I was, holy shit, this looks like he did in Robert Downey Jr. did in Back to School with Rodney Dangerfield. He looked just like himself, or in Weird Science. That's the Robert Downey Jr. I grew up with. So I know what he looked like when he was younger. I grew up with that guy. So when that came on, I was like, holy shit, did they get clips from that movie or something? Because no, they just de-aged him.
Yeah.
That's where, because he's in there. And I think they still use his eyes. And I don't know if it's the software, the technology, or what they're doing. But it looks amazing. It looks awesome.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to let you go on that. I appreciate all the time you've given me. I could fucking geek out and fanboy with you for hours upon hours. But again, I appreciate everything. I'm so sorry that I didn't get to record the other 2 hours because that was just as fun and fascinating. So thanks for going on the rodeo with me again, brother.
This was a lot of fun, man. Anytime you want to do another one, part 2, whatever, man, I'm game.
Sweet. Thanks again, brother.
Hey, no problem, man. You take it easy.